Everyone fled in fear of the vengeful boss, until the maid did the unthinkable. Linda Patterson trembled as she squeezed the mustard bottle between her fingers. The company corridor was filled with executives who looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. But when she thought of her daughter's face, of eyes red from crying so much, of a trembling voice saying she couldn't take it anymore, something inside her broke and came back together at the same time, stronger and fiercer. That was when she saw the man who destroyed Chloe's joy. Harrison Sterling walked down the corridor with that arrogant posture, the immaculate suit, the shoes gleaming. He didn't even look to the sides, so used was he to seeing people get out of his way. And that was exactly what Linda saw happen. One by one, the employees pressed themselves against the walls, lowered their heads, pretended to be busy with papers or phones. The fear was palpable in the air, dense as smoke. Linda took 3 steps forward. Her hands were still trembling, but her feet were planted firmly on the ground. She wasn't going to back down. Not this time. Not when it came to her little girl. "Mr. Sterling," her voice came out louder than she intended. He stopped, turned around slowly, as if he were doing her a favor by acknowledging her existence. His eyes ran over the dark blue uniform she wore, the badge hanging around her neck, her tense posture. A sneer began to form on his lips. "You're the new cleaning lady?" he asked with that tone that already carried contempt. "I'm Chloe Patterson's mother, the intern you humiliated last week." His smile widened. Some employees around them started whispering. No one dared to confront Harrison Sterling. No one who wanted to keep their job, at least. Ah, yes. The incompetent one who turned in wrong reports. So what? Linda didn't answer with words. She raised the mustard bottle, and before anyone could process what was happening, squeezed hard. The yellow liquid shot out in a perfect arc, hitting his chest, his shoulder, his Italian silk tie. It ran down the expensive fabric like a river of pent-up rage. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the air conditioning seemed to make no sound. Every eye was fixed on that impossible scene. The cleaning lady had just dumped mustard on the most powerful and feared man in New York City, on the man who fired people for arriving 2 minutes late, on the man who destroyed careers for pleasure. Harrison Sterling looked at his own chest. The bright yellow contrasted with the dark blue of his suit. Drops fell onto the marble floor, making small sounds that echoed through the frozen corridor. He raised his eyes slowly, and Linda saw something she didn't expect. It wasn't fury. Not yet. It was pure shock, as if his brain still hadn't processed that this had actually happened. "My daughter is 17 years old," Linda continued, and her voice was now steady, clear. "She studies in the morning, works in the afternoon, and spends her evenings in vocational classes. She sleeps 5 hours a night because she wants a better future, because she believes that if she works hard, if she's honest, if she gives her best, she'll make it." She took a step forward. Harrison took a step back. "And you destroyed that. You destroyed in 5 minutes what took me 17 years to build. You called my daughter stupid in front of everyone, said that people like her shouldn't be there, that she should go back to where she came from. You're fired." He finally found his voice, but it came out hoarse, uncertain. "You can fire me, you can sue me, you can do whatever you want to me." Linda threw the empty bottle on the ground. "But you will never lay a finger on my daughter again. You will never speak to her again. You will never even look at her again. Because if you do, I'll be back. And next time it won't be mustard." She turned around and started walking. Her legs were trembling so badly she feared she might fall. But she kept going. One step, another, one more. The employees moved out of her way as if she were on fire. No one said a word. No one moved. It was as if time had stopped in that hallway. Only when Linda turned the corner and was out of everyone's sight did her legs give out. She leaned against the wall, her heart pounding so hard it hurt in her chest. What had she done? Dear God, what had she done? That job paid the electricity and water bills. Without it, how was she going to buy her mother's medication? How was she going to help Chloe with her course tuition? But when she closed her eyes, she saw her daughter again 3 nights ago. She found Chloe in the bathroom, sitting on the cold floor, hugging her knees against her chest. The girl was crying in a way that broke your soul. That silent cry of someone trying not to make noise so no one would worry. Linda had knelt beside her and held her face in her hands. "What happened, sweetheart? Tell me." Chloe had tried to smile, tried to say everything was fine. But then she broke down. She told her about the report she'd turned in with the numbers swapped. A silly mistake, the kind any exhausted person would make. But Harrison Sterling wouldn't accept it as a mistake. He called a special meeting, put Chloe in the center of the room, and spent 20 minutes ridiculing every aspect of her. Her cheap clothes, her way of speaking, her background, her public school, her parents without college degrees. He said, "I only got the internship because the company needs to fill affirmative action quotas," Chloe sobbed, "that I'll never be good enough, that I'm taking the spot of someone who actually deserves to be there." That night, Linda stayed awake until dawn. She looked at her daughter sleeping, finally exhausted from all the crying, and made a decision. It didn't matter what it cost. It didn't matter what happened to her. No one was going to hurt her girl like that and get away with it. Now, leaning against that cold office wall, Linda wiped away the tears that were starting to fall. She had done what she needed to do. Chloe was going to be fine. She would find another job. She always did. She had worked in so many places, done so many different things. One more wouldn't make a difference. Linda Patterson. She froze. She knew that voice. It was him. Harrison Sterling had come after her. Linda turned around slowly, prepared to hear the threats, the yelling, maybe even to be dragged out by security. But what she saw completely confused her. He was alone. He had taken off his stained suit jacket and was holding it in his hand. His white shirt was dirty too, but he didn't seem to care. And the expression on his face wasn't fury. It was something different, something she couldn't identify. "Come with me," he said simply. "I'm not going anywhere with you." That wasn't a request. "Come to my office now." Linda thought about refusing, thought about simply walking away. But something in his tone made her hesitate. It wasn't the voice of the arrogant man from the hallway. It was different, quieter, almost tired. She found herself following him through the corridors, up the stairs, past the reception desk on the top floor where the executive office was. The secretary's eyes went wide when she saw them. She opened her mouth to say something, but Harrison just made a gesture with his hand, and she fell silent immediately. He opened the office door and waited for Linda to enter first. She hesitated on the threshold, every instinct screaming that this was a trap. But she went in anyway. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city below. A dark wooden desk occupied the center, surrounded by bookshelves full of books and awards. Everything there screamed power and money. Linda felt small in the middle of all that luxury, with her simple uniform and worn-out shoes. Harrison closed the door and walked over to the window. He stood with his back to her for a long moment, just looking outside. Linda waited, tense, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. 15 years ago, he finally spoke, still with his back turned. "I didn't have a cent to my name. I had lost everything in a business deal that went wrong. My partners betrayed me, took everything I had built. I ended up literally on the street." Linda said nothing. She didn't understand why he was telling her this. "I was in Flatbush. You know the neighborhood?" She felt a chill down her spine. She knew it. She had lived there for years. "I was sitting on a park bench, not knowing what to do, where to go. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. And then a woman appeared. She had just come out of the corner store with 2 heavy bags. She saw me there in that state and asked if I was okay." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Harrison turned around slowly. His eyes were fixed on Linda, and there was something in them she couldn't decipher. "You gave me half of your groceries. You said you had just gotten paid and could buy more the next day. You gave me bread, cheese, fruit. You asked me if I had somewhere to stay. When I said I didn't, you offered me the couch in your home." Linda felt the world spinning around her. She remembered. My God, she remembered. A thin, dirty man with torn clothes. She had only been 30 at the time, working 2 jobs. Chloe was just a baby. but she had a heart that couldn't say no when she saw someone in need of help. "I didn't take the couch," Harrison continued. "I had too much pride, even in that situation. But I accepted the food. And more than that, I accepted the words you said to me. You said I seemed like an intelligent man, that anyone can fall, but not everyone can get back up, that I would find my way back." He walked over to the table and leaned on it. "It took me 3 months to have a roof over my head again, 6 more to start a new business, 5 years to build what I have today, and in every difficult moment, I remembered that woman who helped me without asking for anything in return. I kept that memory like a treasure." Linda didn't understand why he was telling her all of this. If he remembered her, why had he been so cruel to Chloe? Why did he humiliate her knowing she was the daughter of the woman who had helped him? "When I saw that you had been hired here, I was—" He paused, searching for the right words. "I was happy. I thought I could finally repay what you did for me. I could give you a better job, a higher salary. I could change your life the way you changed mine. Then why did you hurt my daughter?" Linda finally found her voice, and it came out full of pain and anger. "Because I am a terrible man," he said simply, and there was a deep bitterness in those words. "Because the years turned me into something I no longer recognize. Because success made me hard and cruel. Because I forgot what it means to have compassion." He turned back to look out the window. "Your daughter made a mistake, a small mistake, the kind I myself made hundreds of times when I was just starting out. But something in me couldn't stand to see that mistake. Maybe because she reminded me of myself when I was young and insecure, and I wanted to crush that insecurity, destroy it before it turned into weakness." "That's not an excuse," Linda said firmly. "No, it isn't. There's no excuse for what I did. And you're right to hate me." He turned again to face her. "But you're not fired, and neither is your daughter. In fact, I want you both to stay. I want the chance to fix what I broke. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, it's a debt. One I never paid, and that weighs on my conscience every day." Linda laughed, but it was a laugh without humor. "A debt? Do you think you can pay a debt by continuing to humiliate us? Because that's what's going to happen. You'll keep us here and torture us day after day, feeling generous for not firing us. I've seen this story before." "No," he said, and there was a strange sincerity in his voice. "I'll do things differently. I'll improve. I'll be better. People don't change, Mr. Sterling. Some do, when they have the right reason." Linda looked at that powerful man, owner of a billion-dollar company, and for the first time saw what was hidden behind the facade. She saw a tired man, a man who had everything and nothing at the same time, a man who was just as lost as the one she'd found on that park bench 15 years ago. But she also saw danger. She saw a strange obsession gleaming behind those eyes. She saw someone who confused gratitude with possession, and that scared her more than any threat. "I'll think about your offer," she said finally, "but I won't decide now. I need to talk to my daughter. I need to know if she wants to keep working in a place where she was treated that way." "Fair enough," he agreed. "Take all the time you need. But know that your positions are secure. No one will bother you. No one will treat you badly. I'll make sure of it personally." Linda nodded and walked to the door. She placed her hand on the doorknob, but before leaving, she turned one last time. "Mr. Sterling, one thing I've learned in life is that good intentions mean nothing without actions. You can promise whatever you want, but it's your actions that will show who you really are." She left without waiting for a response. She went down the stairs, her legs still trembling, and walked through the hallways where the employees now looked at her with a mixture of admiration and terror. She left the building and finally let the tears fall. What had just happened? She had thrown mustard at her boss, was ready to be fired, maybe even sued, but instead he told a story from the past, offered her a job, promised change, and she didn't know if she believed a single word. Linda walked to the bus stop and sat on the bench. She still had 4 hours until her other job started. She worked at a bakery at night, from 9 at night to 3 in the morning. Then she slept 3 hours and went back to the office at 7 to clean before the employees arrived. It was an exhausting routine, but it was what kept the family going. Chloe was still in school at that time. Linda picked up her phone and sent a message. I need to talk to you. It's important. Want to have dinner together tonight? The response came almost immediately. Mom, are you okay? Did something happen? Linda smiled, reading the worry in her daughter's words. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just want to talk. Love you. The bus arrived, packed as always. Linda got on and stood, holding the support bar, letting the swaying of the vehicle lull her as she thought about everything that had happened. She needed to tell Chloe about the confrontation, about the offer, about the story Harrison had told, and then, together, they would decide what to do. But a part of her, that small part that still believed in second chances, in redemption, in change, wanted to give him a chance to prove he was telling the truth. She wanted to believe that the man she'd helped 15 years ago still existed somewhere beneath all those layers of bitterness and cruelty. The other part, the part that had lived long enough to know how the world worked, screamed that this was dangerous, that she should grab Chloe and run, that men like Harrison Sterling didn't change, that he would use that debt as a chain to keep them there. Linda closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She still had until tonight to decide. She had time to think, to weigh the options, to choose the best path. For now she just needed to get home, take a shower, and prepare the special dinner she had promised Chloe. But what she didn't know was that Harrison Sterling had already started to move. He had already made calls, given orders, put plans into action. Because for him this wasn't about giving the two women a choice. It was about finally having Linda under his control, about keeping her close, about never letting her slip away again. And the obsession growing inside him was far more dangerous than Linda could ever imagine. That night, mother and daughter sat at the small kitchen table. The house was simple, a two-bedroom apartment in an old building, but it was always clean and tidy. Linda had made spaghetti and meatballs, Chloe's favorite dish since childhood. Grandma Martha had already eaten and was in her room watching her soap opera. "So," Chloe began, twirling her fork in the pasta, "what did you want to talk about?" Linda took a deep breath. There was no easy way to say this. "I did something today that could change everything for us. Something that maybe was very impulsive." Chloe looked up, worried. "What did you do, Mom?" "I threw mustard on Harrison Sterling." There was a moment of absolute silence. Then Chloe dropped her fork onto her plate with a loud clatter. "You did what?" "I threw mustard on him, right in the middle of the hallway, in front of everyone." "Mom, why would you do that?" Chloe was pale. "You're going to get fired. He's going to sue you. He's going to—" "He offered us our jobs back." Chloe blinked, confused. "What?" Linda told her everything. The scene in the hallway, the silence of the employees, the summons to his office, the story from the past, the debt Harrison claimed he owed her. She told her about his promise to change, to be better, to make sure no one would bother them. When she finished, Chloe was looking at her with an expression that mixed disbelief, fear, and something else, something Linda couldn't quite identify. "Mom, this is insane," Chloe finally said. "You can't trust him, not after what he did to me." "I know, sweetheart, I know, but what if he's telling the truth? What if he really does want to change? And what if he doesn't? What if this is some kind of game?" Chloe stood up, starting to pace around the kitchen. "Mom, you didn't see the way he looked at me that day. It wasn't anger over a mistake. It was pure contempt, like I was less than nothing, like I had no right to be there." Linda stood up too and held her daughter by the shoulders. "I did see it. I saw it in your eyes when you came home crying. I saw it in your face when you said you didn't want to go to work anymore. And that's exactly why I did what I did, because no one has the right to make my daughter feel that way." "Then why are you even considering going back? Why are you considering making me go back to that place?" "Because we need the money," Linda said with brutal simplicity. "Because your grandmother needs her medication. Because you need to pay for your course. Because I need to pay the bills. And because, sweetheart, if we run away every time someone treats us badly, we'll spend our whole lives running." Chloe pulled away, walking to the kitchen window. She looked down at the street below where neighbors chatted on the sidewalk and children played under the streetlights. "I'm afraid of him, Mom," she whispered. Linda felt her heart tighten. "I know, I am too. But I'll be there with you, every single day." And if he does anything at all, we walk out immediately. I promise. And how are we supposed to survive? The same way we've always survived, with hard work, creativity, and that stubbornness you inherited from me. Chloe turned around, tears in her eyes. I just wanted a chance, a chance to prove I'm good at what I do, that I deserve to be there not because of affirmative action, not out of pity, but because I'm competent. And you are. You are the smartest and most determined person I know. One mistake doesn't define you, Chloe, and that man's opinion doesn't either. They were silent for a long moment. Then Chloe wiped away her tears and went back to the table. Okay, she said. Let's go back, but with one condition. What? The first time he's cruel to me again, to you or to anyone else, we'll report him. We'll stand up for our rights. We won't stay quiet. Linda smiled, proud. Deal. They sealed the agreement with a tight hug, holding each other as if they were one. And in that moment, Linda knew she had made the right decision. Not because she trusted Harrison Sterling, but because she trusted her own strength. And her daughter's strength. Together they could face anything. What neither of them knew was that Harrison Sterling was at that very moment sitting in his luxurious penthouse, looking at an old photo he had kept for 15 years. A photo taken discreetly of that woman in Flatbush, carrying her shopping bags, smiling at the baby in the stroller. He had searched for her for years, hired investigators, scoured records, and when he finally found her, he couldn't contain his euphoria. There she was, working in his building, unaware that he knew exactly who she was. And now, after that unexpected confrontation, after seeing her courage, her strength, the way she wasn't afraid of him, the obsession that was already there grew and transformed into something more dangerous, something more possessive. Harrison took a sip of the expensive whiskey and smiled at the photo. You were always different, Linda. Always special. And now you're going to stay close. You'll stay where I can protect you, where I can watch you, where you'll finally understand that you belong here, with me. He didn't notice how distorted his words sounded, how his concept of gratitude had turned into something sick, how the line between admiration and obsession had completely dissolved. And so began a dangerous game. A game where Linda and Chloe thought they were fighting for their jobs and their dignity, unaware that they were walking straight into a carefully prepared trap. A trap built with good intentions on the surface, but with invisible chains underneath. The next morning dawned cold. Linda woke up at 5:30, as always, her body sore from the bakery shift. She took a quick shower, made coffee for Grandma Martha and Chloe, and by 6:30, she was already at the bus stop. The commute to the office seemed longer than usual. Linda mentally went over all the possibilities of what could happen. Maybe Harrison had changed his mind overnight. Maybe he was waiting for her with security guards to throw her out of the building. Maybe it was all just a strange dream, and she would wake up to find out she had been fired after all. But when she arrived at the building, she found a different surprise. The receptionist, who normally barely even greeted her, stood up as soon as she saw her walk in. "Mrs. Patterson, I have a message for you." Linda approached, suspicious. "What message?" "Mr. Sterling asked that you go straight to his office when you arrive. He's waiting." Linda felt her stomach tighten. It was 7 in the morning. Harrison Sterling never arrived before 9. What was he doing there so early? And why did he want to see her? "Okay," she murmured. "Thank you." She walked up the stairs with her heart pounding. The building was practically empty at that hour, just a few security guards and cleaning staff. The hallway on the top floor was dark, except for the light coming from under the door of the president's office. Linda knocked on the door twice. "Come in." His voice came from inside. She opened the door slowly. Harrison was sitting behind the desk, but he wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing casual clothes, jeans, and a simple shirt. There were papers scattered all over the desk, and he looked like he hadn't slept. "Have a seat," he said without looking at her, continuing to write something. Linda sat down in the chair across from the desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "You wanted to see me?" "I spent the night thinking." He finally looked up. About what you said yesterday. About good intentions not meaning anything without action. He slid a paper across the desk toward her. This is a new contract. For you. Not as cleaning staff, but as facilities supervisor. Your salary will triple. You'll have full benefits, including health insurance that covers your mother too. Fixed hours, no need for extra night shifts. Linda took the paper with trembling hands. She read the words without really processing them. This couldn't be real. And this, he pushed another paper, is for your daughter. A full scholarship to any private college she chooses. The company will cover everything. Tuition, books, transportation. Why? Linda finally managed to speak. Why are you doing this? Because I said I wanted to fix what I broke, and those aren't empty words. I'll prove it with actions. That doesn't fix what you did to my daughter. No, it doesn't. Nothing will fix it. But it's a start. He stood up and walked to the window. And there's one more thing. What? I'm having a meeting today with all the employees. I'm going to apologize publicly to your daughter. I'm going to acknowledge that I acted cruelly and unfairly. I'm going to make it clear that that kind of behavior won't be tolerated anymore. Not from me, not from anyone. Linda's head was spinning. This was too good to be true. There had to be a catch. There had to be something wrong. And what do you want in return? Harrison turned to face her. Nothing, just that you stay, that you give me the chance to prove I can be better. Are you doing all this because of a favor I did 15 years ago? I'm doing it because you reminded me of who I was, of who I should be. You showed me that I became everything I once swore I'd never become. There was sincerity in his voice, but there was something else too. Something Linda couldn't quite identify. A strange intensity, a gleam in his eyes that made her uncomfortable. I'll accept, she said finally, but with a condition of my own. What? If at any moment I feel this isn't right, that you're using us, manipulating us, I can leave, without notice, without explanations, and without you trying to stop me. Harrison hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he nodded. Fair. Linda stood up, holding the papers against her chest. I'm going to show this to my daughter. I'm going to talk to her, and then I'll sign. Perfect. He went back behind the desk. The meeting is at 10. Both of you need to be there. Linda nodded and left the room. Only when she was in the hallway, away from his sight, did she let the tears of relief fall. They were saved. Finally, after so many years of struggling, grinding, working 3 jobs, sacrificing sleep and health, relief had arrived, a chance to breathe. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that this was dangerous, that she was making a pact she didn't fully understand. That Harrison Sterling wasn't the kind man he was pretending to be. Linda ignored that voice. She had to ignore it, because the alternative was going back to the life she had before, and she didn't know if she had the strength to keep going like that. She sent a message to Chloe. News. Good news. Lots of good news. Come home earlier today, as early as you can. The response came in seconds. I'm leaving school now. I'll be there in half an hour. Linda went down to the employee cafeteria and bought 2 coffees and some bread. She sat at a table in the corner and waited, trying to organize her thoughts, trying to understand what had just happened. When Chloe arrived, running, her backpack bouncing against her back, she found her mother smiling. A genuine smile, the kind she hadn't seen in a long time. Mom, what happened? Linda showed the papers. She explained every detail. She watched her daughter's eyes widen, her mouth drop open in shock, the tears begin to fall. Is this real? Chloe whispered, holding the scholarship contract with trembling hands. College, anyone I choose. Anyone, sweetheart. Chloe broke down in tears. She hugged her mother so tightly she nearly knocked them both off the chair. They stayed that way for long minutes, crying together, laughing together, letting all the fear and tension of the past few days finally dissolve. I can study architecture, Chloe said between sobs. I always dreamed of architecture, but I never thought it would be possible. Now it's possible. Now everything is possible. They didn't notice Harrison Sterling watching from a distance, leaning against the hallway wall, a satisfied smile on his face. He had done it. He had Linda right where he wanted her. He had made sure she wouldn't leave, And now he could begin the second phase of the plan, the phase where he slowly made her dependent on him, where he became indispensable in her life. Because for Harrison, this was never about gratitude or redemption. It was about possession, about finally having what he always wanted, about turning that old debt into invisible chains that would bind Linda to him forever. And he was willing to do whatever it took to ensure that. Absolutely anything. The 10 o'clock meeting was surreal. Harrison Sterling summoned all of Chloe's department employees to the main conference room. The room was packed, people standing along the walls, curious about what would be announced. When Linda and Chloe walked in, the whispers started immediately. Everyone had already heard about the mustard incident. The stories varied depending on who was telling them. Some versions said Linda had yelled and caused a huge scene. Others said she had physically threatened Harrison. No version was entirely accurate, but all captured the essence of the absurdity. Someone had dared to challenge the most powerful man in the company. Harrison entered last, and the silence was instantaneous. He walked to the front of the room, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. But Linda could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was clenched. "Good morning, everyone," he began. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. This won't take long." He paused, looking around the room, making a point of making eye contact with several people. "Yesterday, I made a mistake. Actually, I made many mistakes, but one in particular needs to be addressed publicly." The whispers started again. Harrison Sterling admitting a mistake? That was unprecedented. "Last week, during a team meeting, I humiliated one of our interns, Chloe Patterson. She made a mistake in a report, an understandable and fixable mistake, but I chose to use that moment to mock her. I questioned her competence, her background, her right to be here." All eyes turned to Chloe, who was bright red, wanting to disappear. "My behavior was unacceptable. It was cruel. It was the behavior of a weak leader who uses power to crush instead of uplift. And I apologize publicly to Chloe, to her mother Linda, and to all of you who witnessed or heard about that moment." The silence in the room was deafening. No one knew how to react. Some people looked at Harrison in disbelief. Others looked at Chloe with pity. A few looked at Linda with something resembling admiration. From today onward, we'll be implementing new policies in the Human Resources Department. Zero-tolerance policies for any type of harassment, humiliation, or discrimination. And that applies to everyone, including me. He paused. "Especially me." Harrison walked over to where Chloe was and extended his hand. "Chloe, will you accept my apology?" Chloe looked at the extended hand as if it were a snake. Linda felt the urge to intervene, to pull her daughter away, but she held back. That was Chloe's decision. The young woman finally extended her hand and shook his quickly, letting go right away. "I accept," she said softly. "Thank you." Harrison returned to the front of the room. "That's all. You can get back to work." People began to stand up and leave, but the whispers were different now. There was a tone of surprise, confusion, even hope. Maybe things really were going to change. Maybe the tyrant had finally found his humanity. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing, Linda and Chloe were the last to leave. Harrison intercepted them at the door. "Thank you for giving me this chance," he said. "We didn't give you the chance, Mr. Sterling," Linda replied. "You took it. Now it's your responsibility not to waste it." He nodded, and they left. In the hallway, Chloe let out the breath she had been holding. "That was humiliating," she murmured. "I know, my daughter, but it was necessary. He had to do that publicly, the same way he humiliated you publicly." "I don't know if I can trust him, Mom." "Neither do I. But let's watch him. Let's give him some rope and see what he does with it." They went their separate ways. Chloe headed to the intern department, and Linda went to learn about her new role. The change in position meant her own office, small but functional, with a computer and phone. It meant meetings with suppliers, contract management, team supervision. It was a completely new world for her. The first week was a roller coaster of emotions. Linda was constantly learning, trying to understand complex processes, corporate acronyms, negotiation dynamics. Some people genuinely helped her. Others treated her with barely disguised disdain, a cleaning lady who had gotten lucky and now occupied a position she didn't deserve. But Linda didn't let it get to her. She worked hard, arrived early, left late, studied at night the documents she didn't understand during the day. She was determined to prove she deserved to be there, not because of Harrison, but because of herself. Chloe had a similar experience. After the public apology, some co-workers approached her, offering support. Others avoided her, fearing association with someone who had caused so much drama. But she also didn't let it get to her. She focused on her work, triple-checked every report, every spreadsheet, every piece of data. Harrison, for his part, seemed genuinely trying to be different. In meetings, he was less aggressive. When someone made a mistake, he pointed it out constructively instead of destructively. He greeted employees in the hallways. He remembered names, but there was also something strange. He was always near Linda. He would show up at her office with excuses about needing to discuss a contract. He asked her opinion on decisions that clearly didn't require her input. He ran into her casually in the hallway several times a day. At first, Linda thought it was a coincidence. Then she thought maybe he was supervising her work, making sure she was adapting well. But then she started to notice a pattern. He always knew where she was. He always showed up in the places she went. And there was that look, that intense look that made her feel uncomfortable, exposed. She mentioned it to Chloe one night while they were having dinner together. "I think he's watching me," Linda said as she washed the dishes. "Watching you how?" "Showing up wherever I am, knowing things about my routine that I never told him. It's strange." "Mom, do you think he's interested in you?" Chloe asked cautiously. Linda laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "Interested? He's a millionaire, honey. He can have any woman he wants. Why would he want a 45-year-old woman with 2 daughters and a sick mother?" "I don't know, but you're beautiful, Mom, and strong, and brave. Maybe he sees that. Maybe he's just being thoughtful, making sure I'm okay. That's all." But Linda didn't believe her own words. There was something else going on, something she couldn't quite define, but that left her uneasy. By the 3rd week, things escalated. Linda was working late, finishing up some reports that were due the next day. It was almost 8 at night and the floor was empty, or at least she thought it was. When she got up to get some water, she found Harrison standing at the door to her office. She didn't know how long he'd been there, just watching. "Mr. Sterling," she said, startled. "I didn't know you were still here." "I always work late," he said, walking into the office uninvited. "I saw your light on and came to check if everything was all right." "Everything's fine. Just finishing up some reports." "You work too much, more than you should. I still have a lot to learn. You're doing great. Better than a lot of people with degrees and years of experience." Linda forced a smile. "Thank you." Harrison walked over to the window. From her office there wasn't much of a view, just the building next door and a sliver of sky. "You know, Linda, I've been thinking a lot about that day, the day you helped me. That was a long time ago, Mr. Sterling." "Harrison, you can call me Harrison. I'd rather keep it formal, Mr. Sterling." He turned to face her, and there was something different in his gaze, something more intense, more raw. "You don't just remember me because of that day, do you?" Linda felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "You used to work at the corner store. I went there every week to buy things. I always picked your checkout line, even when the others were shorter." She remembered. She'd worked at that corner store for 2 years, when Chloe was about 3 or 4. But she didn't remember him specifically. She served so many people every day. "I tried to talk to you several times," he continued. "I tried to ask you out. But you always said you were taken, that you had a little girl, that you weren't interested. I was taken, and I did have a little girl. And I understood. I accepted it. But I never forgot. You were the first woman who treated me with respect, even when I had nothing. The first one who looked at me and saw a person, not a failure." Linda didn't like where this conversation was going. "Mr. Sterling, I think you're confusing gratitude with something more. I'm not confusing anything. I know exactly what I feel. And what do you feel? That you've always been special. That you've always been different. And that now, finally, I have the chance to be close to you, to get to know you better, to maybe... Stop. Linda raised her hand. Stop right now. Harrison stopped talking, surprised by the firmness in her voice. I accepted the job here because I needed it, because my daughter needed the scholarship, because you promised to be better, but it wasn't because I had any interest in you, and I never will. She grabbed her purse. I'm going home now, and tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about professional boundaries, about what's appropriate and what isn't. She walked past him and out of the office. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely hold onto her purse. She hurried down the stairs, crossed the lobby, and stepped out onto the street. Only when she was inside the bus, a few blocks away, did she allow herself to breathe. This was exactly what she had feared. He wasn't trying to be a better person. He was trying to have her, and he had used the job, her daughter's scholarship, everything as bait to keep her close. When she got home, Chloe was watching TV with her grandmother. She stood up as soon as she saw her mother's expression. What happened? Linda told her everything. The conversation in the office, his confession, the way he had used the story of the past to justify an obsession. We have to get out of there, Chloe said immediately. Today, you're not going back tomorrow. And your scholarship and the money? It doesn't matter. We'll manage. We always have. No, Linda said firmly. We're not running. Not this time. Mom, are you crazy? He's obsessed with you. He manipulated you to keep you close. That's dangerous. I know. That's exactly why we're going to face him. We're going to document everything. We're going to build a case. And then we're going to expose him for what he really is. Chloe looked at her mother as if she was seeing a stranger. Since when did you get so brave? Linda smiled sadly. Since I realized running doesn't solve anything. It just delays the problem. And next time it could be another woman, another family. No, this ends here. Grandma Martha, who had stayed quiet until then, finally spoke. Your mother is right, Chloe. Men like that need to be stopped, and they're only stopped when someone has the courage to stand up to them. But how do we do that without proof? Chloe argued. It's his word against ours. Then we'll get proof, Linda said. And I know exactly how. The next morning, Linda arrived at work earlier than usual. She went straight to Human Resources and asked to speak with the director, a woman named Susan Whitmore, known for being fair and strict. Susan received her in her office with a curious expression. Everyone knew who Linda was now, the mustard woman, the woman Harrison Sterling apparently had a special interest in. How can I help you, Linda? I need to file a complaint, but it's sensitive. Susan leaned forward. I'm listening. Linda told her everything. The conversation the night before, the way Harrison was always showing up, the inappropriate comments, the confession that he had orchestrated it all to keep her close. She told her about the obsession, about how he had twisted an old kindness into something unhealthy. Susan listened in silence, her eyebrows rising higher and higher as the story unfolded. This is very serious, she said when Linda finished. You understand you're accusing the company's president of harassment and misconduct? I understand, and I know my word alone doesn't mean anything. That's why I came here first. I want you to know what's happening before I gather the necessary proof. What kind of proof? Recordings, witnesses, documentation of every time he shows up at my office without a professional reason, inappropriate emails if he sends any. Linda, you know this could destroy your career here, right? Even if you're right, even if you manage to prove everything, people will look at you differently. They'll say you're making it up, that you want money, that it's revenge for the way he treated your daughter. I know, but I can't stay quiet. I can't. Susan remained silent for a long moment. Then she opened a desk drawer and took out a small device. This is a recorder, discreet but effective. Record every conversation he tries to have with you, every single one, and bring me the recordings. You believe me? Let's just say this isn't the first time I've heard rumors about his behavior, but no one has ever had the courage to file a formal complaint, Maybe you'll be the first. Susan slid the recorder across the desk. But be careful. Harrison Sterling is powerful, and powerful men don't like being contradicted. Linda picked up the voice recorder and put it in her purse. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This could get much worse before it gets better. And Susan was right. In the following days, Harrison intensified his efforts. He sent flowers to Linda's office, expensive gifts, dinner invitations she always declined, and when he was near her, he whispered things that sounded like compliments on the surface, but carried a possessive weight underneath. You look beautiful in blue. I like the way you put your hair up. Your perfume is hypnotizing. Linda recorded everything, every inappropriate comment, every unsolicited appearance, every email that crossed the line between professional and personal. She kept a detailed journal with dates, times, contexts. Chloe, for her part, started investigating on her own. She talked to other employees, especially women, and what she discovered left her disgusted and scared. Harrison had a pattern. He always had. Vulnerable women who depended on their jobs, who had no choice but to accept his advances. Some had given in out of fear. Others had been fired when they refused. There was one former employee in particular, a woman named Heather, who agreed to talk to Chloe at a cafe far from the office. He did the same thing to me 3 years ago, Heather said, stirring her coffee without drinking. He offered a promotion, a better salary, benefits, and then he started showing up, always finding excuses to be close, making comments, sending gifts. What did you do? At first I ignored it. I thought that if I was polite but firm, he'd get the message. But he didn't get it, or he didn't want to. So I went to HR. I filed a formal complaint. And what happened? Heather laughed bitterly. 2 weeks later I was fired, officially due to budget cuts. But everyone knew the truth, and no one wanted to hire a woman who had reported Harrison Sterling. I was unemployed for 8 months. Chloe felt nauseous. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Just be careful. Your mother is walking into a war she can't win. She's won worse wars. I hope so, because he won't give up. And when he realizes she really doesn't want anything to do with him, he'll try to destroy her. That's what he does. If he can't have something, he destroys it. Chloe left that meeting more determined than ever. She had to protect her mother. She had to find a way to stop Harrison before it was too late. That's when she had an idea. A risky, potentially dangerous idea, but maybe an effective one. If Harrison was obsessed with her mother, maybe she could use that to their advantage, not to manipulate him, but to expose him. That night, she shared the idea with Linda. You're crazy, Linda said immediately. Absolutely crazy. Maybe, but it will work. You want me to pretend to be interested in him? To trick him into fully exposing himself? Don't pretend to be interested. Just don't reject him so openly. Let him think he has a chance. And in the meantime, we record everything. Every inappropriate move. Every comment crossing the line. Every promise he makes in exchange for attention. Linda shook her head. That's manipulation. And I'm not like that. It's not manipulation. It's self-defense. He's already doing all of this. We're just going to document it better. What if it goes wrong? What if he finds out? He won't find out. And when we have enough evidence, we take everything to a lawyer, a real one from outside the company. We build a case so solid that not even his power can erase it. Linda looked at her daughter for a long moment. When had Chloe become so strong, so strategic? She was no longer the insecure girl who cried in the bathroom. She had grown up. She had matured. She had become a young woman who knew how to fight. All right, Linda finally agreed, but we do it our way, with clear boundaries, without putting myself in real danger. Agreed. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out, now continuing. And so began a dangerous dance. Linda stopped rejecting Harrison so explicitly. When he sent flowers, she thanked him politely. When he showed up at the office, she didn't send him away immediately. When he made inappropriate comments, she smiled ambiguously instead of confronting him. Harrison interpreted that as progress, as a sign that she was finally giving in. He intensified his efforts even further. The gifts got more expensive. The dinner invitations turned into weekend trip invitations. The comments became bolder, more explicit. And Linda recorded everything, every word, every promise. Every time he made it clear that he was using her job and Chloe's scholarship as bargaining chips for attention and companionship. After 3 weeks of following this plan, they had hours of recordings. They had saved emails. They had testimonies from Heather and 2 other former employees Chloe had managed to track down. They had a solid case. That was when Linda sought out a lawyer specializing in employment law. The office was small, located in an out-of-the-way neighborhood, but the lawyer, Counselor Diane Brennan, had a reputation for being relentless when it came to defending harassment victims. Diane was a woman in her 60s, white hair pinned up in an elegant bun, sharp eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. She listened to the whole story without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When Linda finished, Diane was silent for a moment, rereading her notes. "You have a strong case," she finally said. "Very strong. The recordings are clear. The testimonies from the other women establish a pattern, and the fact that he's using employment benefits as leverage is particularly incriminating. So can I sue him? You can, and you'd probably win. But I need to be honest with you, Linda. Men like Harrison Sterling don't go down easily. He has resources. He has expensive lawyers. He has influence. A lawsuit could drag on for years. I don't care how long it takes. And there's another problem. Large companies tend to protect their executives, especially the founders. There's a chance that, even with all this evidence, he'll get a confidential settlement. He pays you compensation, has you sign a non-disclosure agreement, and continues his life as if nothing had happened. Linda felt frustration burn in her chest. So there's no way to actually stop him? There is. But it requires a different approach. Diane leaned forward. Instead of going straight to a lawsuit, what do you think about exposing everything publicly? Taking the recordings to the media, to newspapers, specialized websites, making it too big to be buried. But won't this ruin my life too? They'll crucify me. They'll say I'm doing this for money or attention. They will. And it's going to be horrible. But it will also force the company to act. It will force the shareholders to question his leadership. It will take away the power he has over you and over other women. Linda thought for a long moment. She thought about her daughter, about her mother, about the life she had built with so much sacrifice. Exposing everything publicly meant destroying all of that. It meant becoming a target. It meant living under constant scrutiny. But it also meant freedom. It meant no other woman would have to go through what she went through. It meant breaking the cycle. "Do it," she said finally. "Expose everything." Diane smiled, a small but satisfied smile. "You're brave. Braver than most people who sit in that chair. I'll start preparing everything. In 2 weeks, we'll have enough material to take to 3 different outlets. But be prepared. Once this goes public, your life is going to be turned upside down. It's already upside down. At least now it'll be on my terms." Linda left the lawyer's office feeling a strange mix of fear and relief. She had taken the first real step toward changing things. Not just for herself, but for every woman Harrison had hurt over the years. When she told Chloe and Grandma Martha, the 3 of them stayed up late, discussing the next steps, bracing themselves for the hurricane that was about to hit their lives. "It's going to get ugly," Grandma Martha said, holding her daughter's hand. "People are going to talk, they're going to judge, but you're doing the right thing, sweetheart." "I hope so, Mom, I hope so." But the next morning, when Linda arrived at work, she found something unexpected. Her office was locked. There was a security guard standing outside. "What's going on?" she asked. "Orders from Mr. Sterling, ma'am. You're suspended while they investigate some irregularities." "What irregularities?" "I don't know the details, ma'am. I'm just following orders." Linda felt her blood run cold. He had found out. Somehow Harrison had found out she was gathering evidence against him, and now he was fighting back. She went straight to human resources, but Susan wasn't there. Her assistant said she had been abruptly transferred to another branch of the company, with no explanation. Panic began to creep in. Linda tried calling Diane, but the call went straight to voicemail. She texted Chloe, "Don't come to work today. Wait for my call." Then she went home. And it was only when she got there, turning on the TV while waiting for Grandma Martha to wake up, that she saw the news and felt her world collapse around her. Scandal at Pinnacle Systems. CEO accuses former employee of extortion and defamation. Harrison Sterling claims that Linda Patterson, recently promoted, attempted to blackmail him using edited recordings and false testimonies. The company has already filed criminal charges against the accuser. Linda sank onto the couch, unable to process what she was seeing. He had gotten ahead of her. He had turned the tables. He had turned her from victim into villain. And the worst part, he had the resources and the influence to make people believe him. Chloe came running through the door, having seen the same news on her phone. She found her mother sitting on the couch, staring into space, in a state of shock. "Mom, what do we do?" Linda took a moment to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was strangely calm. "We fight. It's what we always do." She grabbed her phone and called Diane again. This time the lawyer answered. "I saw the news," Diane said before Linda could speak. "He was faster than we expected. What do I do?" "Nothing for now. Let him expose himself. Let him tell his version. And then, when everyone thinks they already know the whole story, we release the real recordings, the unedited ones, the full testimonies, and we show everyone who the liar is. And what if they still don't believe us? They will, because the truth has a way of rising to the surface. It just needs time and courage." "How much time?" "A few days, a week at most. I have contacts at 3 serious media outlets. They're reviewing the material I sent. They just need to verify the sources, confirm the testimonies. Journalistic processes take time, but they're solid. And in the meantime, I become the national villain. For now, yes. But it's temporary, Linda. It's temporary." Linda hung up and looked at her daughter and her mother, who was now in the living room too, having woken up from the noise. "It's going to get worse before it gets better," she told them both. "Be prepared." And worse it did get. In the hours that followed, the story spread across social media. Linda became the target of coordinated attacks. They said she was an opportunist, a schemer who used her daughter to get a job and then tried to extort her generous boss. They said the recordings were fabricated, that the testimonies came from people paid to lie. Articles appeared describing Harrison as a visionary leader, a self-made businessman, a man who had overcome immense adversity to build an empire, a man who had helped countless people over the years, a man who was being unfairly attacked by a disgruntled employee. Linda's house was surrounded by reporters. They shouted questions, accusations, and filmed through the window. They had to close every curtain and lock every door. Grandma Martha cried in the bedroom, frightened by all that madness. Chloe alternated between fury and despair. "It's a lie," she shouted at her mother. "All of this is a lie. Why can't people see it?" "Because he's rich and powerful. And we're nobody," Linda replied. But her voice was tired, defeated. It was the longest night of their lives. Linda barely slept, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the whole situation crushing her chest. She had done the right thing. She knew she had, but the price was too high. For the first time in many years, she considered giving up. To hell with it all. Take Chloe and Grandma Martha and flee to another city. Start over somewhere no one knew them. Let Harrison Sterling have his victory. But when the sun came up, when she saw Chloe already awake in the kitchen making coffee, eyes swollen from crying but still steady, still standing, Linda knew she couldn't give up. Not when her daughter was watching. Not when the lesson she was going to teach was about courage and resilience. "Good morning, sweetheart." "Good morning, Mom. Did you sleep well?" "No, but I'm standing." That's what matters. They had coffee together in silence, listening to the reporters still outside, the neighbors whispering, the world judging without knowing the truth. And then Linda's phone rang. It was Diane. "Turn on the TV. News 1. Now." Linda turned on the television. and switched to the indicated channel, and what she saw left her breathless. It was an investigative journalism program, one of the most respected in the country, and the anchor was saying, "Today we're going to reveal an investigation that lasted weeks. An investigation into systematic harassment, abuse of power and manipulation at one of the most successful companies in the country. And the evidence we have is irrefutable." The screen changed, showing excerpts from the recordings Linda had made. Unedited, complete, with timestamps and context, showing Harrison making inappropriate comments, promising promotions in exchange for attention, implicitly threatening when Linda tried to keep her distance. Then came the interviews with Heather and the other two women, telling their stories, showing documents, emails, proof that they had been fired shortly after reporting his behavior. The program lasted 40 minutes, 40 minutes of meticulously organized and presented evidence, 40 minutes that completely destroyed the narrative Harrison had built. When it ended, Linda's phone exploded with messages of support, of admiration, from other women who had gone through similar situations, from people offering help, offering work, offering support. The story on social media changed within hours. Now Harrison was the villain. Now Linda was the brave heroine. Now people understood. But Linda didn't feel victory. She only felt a deep exhaustion and relief. Relief that finally, the truth had come to light. Diane called again. "Did you see it?" "I did. The company has already released a statement. Harrison Sterling has been temporarily removed from the presidency. There's an internal investigation underway. And 10 other women have already contacted me wanting to join a class action lawsuit." 10? 10. And the number is growing. You opened the floodgates, Linda. You gave other women the courage to speak out. Linda started crying, not from sadness, but from a relief so intense she couldn't contain it. "Thank you," she managed to whisper. "Don't thank me. You did all the heavy lifting. You were brave when no one else was." In the days that followed, the story kept growing. More women came forward. More evidence was presented. The company's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Harrison was officially removed from his position as president. Criminal charges were filed. His reputation, built over decades, crumbled within days. Linda received offers from other companies, better job offers with fair pay, with respect. She chose a smaller company, run by women, where she knew she would be valued not despite her story but because of it. Chloe decided to accept the scholarship at another university, one that had reached out offering full support after seeing the story. She was going to study architecture. She was going to fulfill her dream, not because of Harrison but in spite of him. And Linda finally managed to cut down to just one job. She was able to sleep 8 hours a night. She was able to spend time with her mother and daughter without being too exhausted to enjoy it. She was able to breathe. But Harrison's story wasn't over yet. Months later, during the trial, he asked to speak with Linda. She initially refused. She didn't want to see him. She didn't want to hear his apologies or justifications, but Diane convinced her that maybe it was important. For closure. To finally close that chapter. They met in a neutral place, a mediation room, with Diane present. Harrison walked in, and Linda almost didn't recognize him. He had aged years in just a few months, whiter hair, tired eyes. The arrogance was completely gone. They sat across from each other. Harrison spoke first. "I thought a lot about what to say. I rehearsed 1,000 times. But in the end, there's only one thing that matters. I'm so sorry." Linda said nothing. "I was obsessed, sick. I turned something that should have been gratitude into something distorted and dangerous, and I hurt you. I hurt your daughter. I hurt so many other people, and there's no excuse for that. No, there isn't. I lost everything. The company, my reputation, my friends, my family, everything, and it's exactly what I deserved." "Yes, it is." Harrison looked at his own hands. "Do you want to know something ironic? The only thing that keeps me sane is remembering that woman in Flatbush. That woman who helped me without judging, without asking for anything in return. That woman who saw humanity in me when I couldn't see it in myself. That woman still exists. But she learned that kindness doesn't mean accepting abuse, that helping someone doesn't give that person the right to own her. I know, and I'm sorry I confused that. Linda stood up. I accept your apology. Not for you, but for me, because I need to move on. And I can't do that carrying anger. Thank you. But Harrison, one last thing. Yes? If you really want to fix what you broke, if you really want to be better, start by using your story to help. Talk about what you did. Admit it publicly. Help other victims. Turn your downfall into something that can educate and prevent. Harrison nodded slowly. I'll do that. I promise. Linda left that room feeling a weight finally lift. She had confronted the monster. She had won. And more importantly, she had survived. The months turned into a year. The company where Harrison worked implemented strict policies to protect female employees. A fund was created to support victims of workplace harassment. Harrison, keeping his promise, began giving lectures about how power can corrupt and about the importance of recognizing abusive behavior. Linda thrived in her new job. She was promoted to manager. She became a mentor to other women. Her story was told in books, documentaries, and lectures. She became, without meaning to, a symbol of courage and resilience. Chloe graduated in architecture with honors. She landed an internship at a renowned firm. She started designing affordable housing, wanting to use her profession to help people like her and her mother, people who came from nothing and deserved dignified spaces. Grandma Martha lived to see all of it. She lived to see her daughter and granddaughter triumph. She lived to see justice being done. And when she finally passed away at 83 years old, she went in peace, knowing she had raised a strong daughter and an even stronger granddaughter. And Linda? Linda learned that courage is not the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. It's getting up every day and choosing to fight even when it would be easier to give up. It's protecting the ones you love, no matter the cost. She learned that an ordinary person can change the world. You don't need to be rich, powerful, or influential. You just need to have courage and a heart that refuses to accept injustice. Years later, when Linda looked back at everything she had been through, she didn't see a victim. She saw a survivor. She saw a warrior. She saw a woman who had grabbed that tube of mustard and, with that act of rebellion, had changed not only her own life but the lives of countless other women. And that, Linda knew, was worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of fear and uncertainty. Because in the end, courage always wins. The truth always prevails. And those who are on the right side of history, no matter how difficult the path, eventually find the light. The end. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story? Do you think Linda made the right decisions? Have you been through something similar, or do you know someone who has faced workplace harassment? Share your opinion with us in the comments with sincere words. Your story might inspire others. Don't forget to leave your like and, more importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one. Thank you so much for your company.